Hey everyone, it's Alan over at Cobblers Plus, and thank you for joining us for our Soul Talk Sunday. Today we're going to be covering some thin protective soles. Also, some people may know them as soul guards. So come join us and check out what we have for you today.
I'm Alan Tershkov. Join us today and enter our world of a cobbler to see the craftsmanship it takes to rebuild and restore footwear and other leather goods, as well as recommendations from our industry.
So thank you for joining us for our Soul Talk Sunday, and like I mentioned today, we're going to be talking about protective soles, also known as soul guards. Many of you may know what they are, and if you don't know what they are, we'll go ahead and cover that right now. Protective sole is usually something that's designed to go over top of the existing sole, whether it's leather or rubber or composite or whatever it may be. A rubber protective sole is designed to go on right about there, usually where the ball of the foot area is. That's usually where you have the most wear. It adds a little more life, a little more traction and durability overall, and it's a little more cost efficient to replace in the long run of things. Protective soles, I mean, in general, they come in a large variety of options. There's different tread patterns, thicknesses, and even certain materials. Sometimes they vary as well. Some of them are a nylon-based material, some are more of a rubber-based material. But for today, what we're covering is mostly the ones that are a little bit more low profile, under the 2mm mark. I mean, the thickest would probably be at the 2mm, and that's about the thickest. And if you think about it, I mean, that's not much at all, so it's definitely one of those low profile add-ons that you can definitely help improve your footwear significantly with durability and wearability as well. So let's go ahead and talk about a couple of the ones that we have here for you today. Now for today, what we have are the ones that we tend to carry most of all. I mean, there are, again, a large variety of them out there. There are some that are great, some that are not so great, but we've narrowed them down to, the ones that we really like, that we tend to be able to get access to a little more frequently. There is one particular brand that I really like, but I don't have easy access to it, unfortunately, and most of the West Coast doesn't either, but we'll mention that one a little bit later on. But for today, we'll start out with one that's not very well known. This is the GTO brand. The GTO, again, is not very well known. They come out of Italy. It's a newer company that's starting to grow significantly because of all the options of soles that they have, the different colors and everything. This is usually their traditional protective sole that they have here. It's pushing almost 2mm. It's just under that. I think about 1.8, 1.9mm is what it's at on these guys. But it also comes in a thinner version at 1mm. It usually comes in sheets like this. We've got white here. We've got one that's pre-cut in red right here, and that's actually what we used on these little red bottom soled Louboutins, which are still being worked on at the moment. It's a low profile, not very noticeable. It's perfect for a lady's high heel that's very slim, narrow leather sole that was put on there at that 1mm style. And with the GTO ones, you definitely get a bit of a different tread pattern. It's more of like a pebbled grain, so it on some low profile high heels, some ladies don't like them too much, just because from a side view, from up close, of course, it has a little bit of look to it, I guess you can say. It looks a little rougher. It's not so smooth or anything, which is fine. I mean, from up close, if somebody notices it, they might be just a little bit too close to your feet to to be able to notice that there. So you may either be accidentally stepping on their face, or it's time to give them a good kick with these, and these would be scary to get kicked by, don't you think? So we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. This is a bit more of a more infamous brand. A lot more people know about it. Vibram. Vibram is definitely one that we have to make sure we have in stock because we love them. Vibram is definitely an awesome sole. They do also have their protective sole line. A lot of people, when they think about Vibram, they affiliate it with the big, thick lug soles that are really hefty all around. And I mean, they're known for that. That's what basically they started with. But over the years, I mean, Vibram's expanded drastically and dramatically. They've brought their really durable, grippy material to something a little bit more low profile like this here. And again, they've got the same options as the GTO. You know, they've got the thicker version at 1.8 millimeters, and that's usually what's used on Western boots and dress shoes for men's, and some of those ladies' shoes that are a little bit of a thicker sole as well. It could also be used as a half sole when we're not just placing the protective sole over top, but we're actually replacing the entire front area of that shoe, just because it's that perfect thickness. They also have their 1 millimeter versions as well. Also come in quite a few different colors, as you can tell here, and they usually come in sheets as well. And those are definitely what are mostly traditionally used for your red bottom Louis Vuittons like that there. Now, as far as the red soles, we'll talk about that in a minute, but we'll kind of get through the different options and different brands that I have here for you today. But as far as the tread pattern on these guys, they're a little bit less of a aggressive tread than the GTO, but it's what's called a pyramid tread. So it's like basically many little pyramids that just are stacked up next to each other over and over, and so definitely has a really nice grip to it, but it's not quite as grippy as the pebbled grain from GTO. The pebbled grain, it does stick up a little bit more, so grips a little better, but still very nice nice add-on to have. Say if you had a leather sole that was very slippery, you're gonna add a fair amount of grip. Even once the tread is worn off of these two here, the rubber's still going to grip better than leather, certain other types of cheaper rubbers out there that some companies use, and some composites as well. So definitely going to be a huge aspect for adding grip, longer wear, and more cost efficient to replace in the long run of things. Now we're going to move on to one of the brands that is becoming more and more popular worldwide, and that would definitely be the Caselli. Caselli has a few different options out there for protective soles. We don't tend to stock a lot of their other options, at least not currently, because they are still a growing company. So in the North American area, we don't tend to get all their sole options. But they are very well known amongst the cobblers nowadays for their mirror gloss finish like this here. They have a few models that are very similar to what these ones are here, but the mirror gloss, I mean, look at it, it's beautiful. It's shiny. It's just amazing. And the shine can be removed if you're not wanting it to stick out like a sore thumb or anything, if you have a particular shoe that doesn't have that gloss finish, and just looks a little more like this, a little more dulled up. And even as you wear it too, I mean, it's gonna have certain areas that wear out a little bit and it'll become a little bit duller, but it still looks nice around the edges majority of the time, because when you're wearing a high heel like this, most of the wear I've noticed tends to be right in these areas right here, closer towards the center. So the outer edge, the rim of it, is still going to look nice and shiny for as long as possible as well on that. So it's definitely a beautiful sole. Now you might be thinking that because it's a smooth finish like this, it has no grip. Not true, actually. The type of material that they use in here is extremely grippy, even without the tread pattern. If you walk on a smooth surface that's wet, you're definitely going to have some very good grip and traction, good surface area and everything on it. So huge upgrade from going from a leather to even the mirror gloss and everything. So it's definitely a huge step up from that, and again, more cost efficient having these replaced, and these here, over having to replace the leather sole, which gets a lot more costly, or having to rebuild the whole shoe and recraft it as well if you wear it down too far. Now, as I mentioned, the GTO, it comes out of Italy, but so do all of these here. The Caselli, the Vibram, Britannia, protective sole, they all come out of Italy, which is definitely a very reputable country to have your product manufactured. So a huge step up for sure from that. Now, as far as, comparison-wise between these three soles here, durability, I'm always going to have to go with Vibram. They seem to have that perfect blend and everything of rubbers, where it just seems to be the more durable option, and that's kind of pound for pound. So if you're comparing the 1mm thickness Vibrams to the 1mm GTO, I'd have to give Vibram the durability side on that. But when it comes to grip, GTO is definitely on the top end of that. Durability wise, they're kind of I would say kind of in between. Well, I wouldn't even say in between. They, durability wise, the Caselli and the GTO seem to tie, but grip wise, the GTO definitely has the upper hand, where the Caselli has the better appearance, but durability, they're about the same. So, you kind of have a little bit of options here, between the different styles of soles, where one's a little bit more durable, but it, doesn't grip as much, and then the other one grips more, but it has better durability, and then another one that has more class. When you bring that in, that's kind of like a shocker almost when you bring this one in here, where it's just smooth, low profile, still has great durability, some traction, kind of that perfect median, but the beauty aspect of it is perfect. So Caselli kind of like screws up everything when we bring out these here. We're like, hey, you got these options right there, GTO or Vibram. Yeah, they look great, it's nice low profile, and then bam, pull out the Caselli. So they're all very close though, as far as all of the aspects that I just mentioned: the durability, the traction, the overall wear patterns, and everything. Everything is very, very close between these three companies. It's extremely close. So just because you're going from, instead of the Vibram where it's a little more durable, to the Caselli, doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to have your life expectancy shortened by half by going with this option. Not at all. It's very, very, very small amount. If you can wear this, let's say 20 times, the Vibram you can wear 20 times before it's time to replace. The GTO probably about closer to like 19 times, maybe 18 on the worst of the worst case wearers. The Caselli, same thing, about 18 or 19 times. That's just rough figures for you. So I mean, it's not very different, and you're definitely going to be able to wear them more than just 20 times before wearing them out, unless you're somebody that drags your feet. So just want to point that out. I'm just giving the wear the shoes 20 times as an example. I've had some people that have worn them nearly 100 times before they needed replaced, and some people who quite literally wore them out in 20 wears, and some even in 10. It just depends on your walk pattern, how you wear them, the conditions you wear them, and all that kind of stuff always plays a huge role in how long things wear. There's no way of actually measuring how long these soles are going to wear for you, because everyone walks different. Everyone wears them in different conditions, and somebody wears a pair of shoes every single day. Some person only wears them once a month or even once a year. So it just varies. Now, there are a lot of protective soles, as I mentioned, out there. A lot of brands. A lot of them are great. A lot of them are not so great. They're all over the place. These are kind of the more popular ones that cobblers tend to have access to, that all of us cobblers have, used for many years. We love them. We vouch for them. There is one brand on here that I don't have. I don't have access to it very easily here in Colorado, and everywhere on the West Coast they have lesser access as well on it. It's more of an East Coast type of thing. But there's a brand called SVIG, SVIG. Very great stuff. Very similar to the GTO. I would definitely have to put it in comparison to GTO, almost side by side. Comparison wise, I think they might be just about the same. I have a different particular sole coming in of SVIG that a distributor is going to send out to me to test out, so I'm going to take that sole with GTO's compared exact same sole and thickness, and test them out side by side comparison, just to get that down. But from what I've seen between SVIG and GTO, very similar, very well built, both of them. So if you're closer to the East Coast and you take it to your local cobbler there, they might not even know what GTO is, but they do have SVIG as an option, and it's definitely a great option to go. Most cobblers around all of North America and Canada, of course, too, they should have Vibram. I mean, if they don't have Vibram, that's kind of interesting there. Some don't even carry the Vibram, just because it does come in at a premium cost, and so they just go with the GTO or the SVIG, just because Vibram is just not as high of a demand. In other words, people don't really ask for it as much. They tend to go for GTO more frequently. We like to have options for sure. And then Caselli, again, it's more of a growing brand out there. So not very known amongst all the cobblers quite yet, but a lot of the best cobblers in North America are definitely stocking these things for sure. Now, as far as the color goes, colors vary from brand to brand always. It's impossible to get it to match up exact to what you're wanting to. I mean, if you take the GTO brown here and the Vibram brown, the GTO is more of a medium brown, kind of closer to a chocolate there, where the Vibram one here is a dark brown. It's almost on the verge of being black even. So, color-wise, you're not going to be able to get the exact matches between the different brands. You're not even going to be able to match them up to the original color of what you have on your shoes or boots often. Sometimes it does, which you get lucky with it, sometimes you don't, but even the tans and beiges too. I mean, GTO does have a few different beige and tan colors, so different varieties, and they usually come in sheets in the 1mm thickness. In these thicker ones, they tend to have just that one there. Same thing with Vibram. This is their 1.8mm one that is a bit thicker, and it usually comes in that beige color there. And so it's one of those things where matching up color it's not always exact. Sometimes you get lucky again. With Caselli, they've got this beige here, but they do have a few other tans and beiges apparently available, but they're still not available to us here in the US, which is kind of a shame. I mean, we had enough trouble getting the black in for some reason. I don't know why. The red came in first, and then all of a sudden the beige, and then the black. They were kind of iffy about getting them in here in North America. So hopefully they'll bring in more of those beige colors and tans from Caselli too. Those are really awesome. I saw it on one of their catalogs, I believe, that they had for us cobblers, and it looked beautiful, but none of our distributors really stock it too much. As far as the coloring goes for matching up with the Louboutin, the GTO seems to be the closest in color that I've noticed. I don't know about the SVIG. I wouldn't be able to tell you for sure how close it is. Afterwards, definitely the Casali will match up closest, and then Vibram's in last place for matching up with color. Vibram at one point did have a closer color, and then they also had a mess up on color where it almost looked orange when it came in. So it was definitely one of those things where we just had to say, all right, well, the orange we're not going to use. We have it somewhere up here on our shelves. I don't remember where I put it. I think I put it behind some boxes for one of those weird days where we decided to do something weird with another pair of shoes, but we will never use it on Louboutins because it was more of an orange color. Finish wise, of course, the Caselli is going to look the most elegant, basically, but for your durability, you've got your Vibram. For your more traction, you've got your GTO. So it just depends what you're after. Do you prefer a nicer look? Do you prefer better traction? Do you prefer more durability? You've got options, at least. So that at least covers the color aspect. And there are some companies out there that also make other forms of red that are a little bit of a different shade in red. Maybe they match a little bit closer with a different traction pattern or something else. It's very hard to tell with just pictures and everything. In person, we have to see it and lay it side by side with the Louboutin sole. So it's definitely not one of those things that we'll see on Amazon, we'll see on eBay, we'll see in a catalog, or a company emails it to us. Pictures say 1,000 words, but when it comes to the exact shade, I'm sorry, we got to see those in person. But as far as one of those newer, more popular protective soles, sole guards that people are calling out there, the clear version that are coming out, those are not protective soles. They are not sole guards, they are tape. That is literally what it is. For anyone that asks us, can you put the clear on? No, we will not. We do not stock it. We will never stock it, because I have talked to a number of companies that manufacture soles, a number of companies that manufacture products that are similar to that sole guard stuff, whatever they call it, and all of them, all these companies, even 3M, the company that manufactures tape, they also manufacture large tubing as well. They have clear tape, it's clear. They have some that's even like, semi-clear, where it's got a little bit of a like a traction pattern, on it, but it just doesn't really show 100% clear through. It looks a little foggy, in other words. Even those too, all the companies I talked to, they said that all of these clear materials, they are strictly designed to be durable. When you stretch it, when you pull it, they are strong that way, but they are not strong for impact or for being dragged across a surface in any form or way. They wear out extremely fast. So if you're relying on using those clear products and putting them on the bottom of your Louboutins, your Jimmy Choos, your Gucci's and Pradas, if they had a nice colored finish on the bottom or something, you're gonna wear through those probably within your first 2 to 3 wears. If you're lucky, maybe 4 or 5. And in some cases, your first wear and you've already worn through it and you've already damaged the original finish regardless. So save yourself some trouble and time on it. Don't bother wasting your money on those. They're not worth it. I've talked to Vibram, I've talked to a few other sole manufacturing companies out there too, and they actually explained to me why it doesn't work when you're using clear materials. And the reason they don't work with clear materials, of course, is because the particular rubber mixtures and contents that they use to make these soles durable, make them grip, they naturally have some form of coloring pigment already in it. Already they have that, and you can't exactly just bleach rubber and make it clear. You can't remove any of the pigment. So in order to counter whatever that pigment, natural pigment is from that particular type of rubber that they used or the composite that they used, they add a different form of pigment over top of that. I mean, they could get white, where my roll is down here. I mean, they could get white. It's no problem, The white is because they add the pigment to it. But removing any form of pigment or color and make it completely transparent is impossible. It is impossible to do and have that particular material still function the way you expect it to function. So just bear that in mind. If you're somebody that's wanting the clear protective soles or sole guards, cobblers don't use them. At least any experienced and well-educated cobblers in our industry, they will never use it. They will never stock it. It is not something we want to deal with at all, because you're going to have it brought into us. We're going to apply it, and your first or second wear, you wear it off, and who are you going to blame it on? On us. And that's not a product we can stand behind. We can't. It's not durable. It's not grippy. It doesn't extend the life expectancy. You're just going to throw your money away on it, unfortunately. So save your time, save your money. If you have a pair of Louboutins, the shade might be off a little bit, but go with the rubber. It's going to be red all the way clear through to the very bottom. Once you finally wear it out and see that it's starting to show the natural leather color appearing underneath, that's just an indication that, hey, it's time to get that replaced. And you just take it to your local cobbler and get that protective sole replaced again. Same rules apply with the with all these other colors here. If you use a beige, if you use a black. Now, the downsides of protective soles in general. There's a few, I guess you can say. There are definitely huge pluses to them. Now, one of the main downsides, and this is what we always mention to anyone who asks, is it worth investing into the protective soles? Is it worth putting it on? It is, unless you dance in them. If you dance in them, you're going to have a little too much traction. Certain dance styles, I don't know which one's out there. I'm not a dancer myself personally. Certain dance styles, you need to be able to slide around, twist and turn, like the tango, for example. You need to be able to have that kind of slippery surface. And a protective sole, unfortunately, will grip too much. Even with these smooth Casellis here, it's still going to grip way too much. So that's kind of the major downside of whenever anybody asks us, is it worth investing into? What's the downside? It's the grip aspect. If you need to be able to slide, then these aren't going to work for you. But for your everyday use, you're walking around, even just going out to events where you're not going to dance or anything, these are definitely going to help improve your traction, be able to not slip and fall or slide around too much or anything like that. The other downside, of course, is that these are adhered on. So, I mean, with a lady's shoe like this, most of the time these soles are adhered on. They're just glued on anyway. So it makes no difference on a lady's shoe like that, where we end up sanding out a portion of the original sole and then gluing it over top. but you do have to consider, because it is glued on, if you leave them in a hot area or a very humid environment, you get them wet and everything, the adhesives can deactivate and it'll start to peel up on a corner or something. Or, you know, certain materials just don't like to cooperate with adhesives, because we do get shoes that have leather on them. We do get some, like these ones here, where they're rubber underneath. These have been sanded out and everything to get a protective sole on. So we're gonna be putting a specific blend of adhesive that we have first as a primer, and then we'll put on another coat of a different adhesive. And with all the new adhesives coming, or not adhesives, with all the new materials and, you know, products and shoes coming out there, you know, it's hard for us cobblers to really be able to identify for sure which one it is. We may think that it's one thing, but it may be a completely different rubber that the factory used on there, or even like a cheap knockoff of a leather, you know, where it's actually just basically small thin layers of leather chunks, and, you know, one of the layers ends up peeling up with the protective sole. So it's hard to identify sometimes, even for us cobblers who work on these products and items day in and day out. So don't get too frustrated on it. If you end up getting a protective sole done and all of a sudden it starts to peel up on any of the corners or the edges, we're more than happy to help however we can. Now, if you wear it out and it starts to peel out, that's just another form of indication that it's time to get that replaced, because you've worn it down too thin. Let's say this one here is at 1.8 millimeters and you wore it down to 0.1, 0.2, or 0.3 millimeters. You've worn through more than half the material and it's going to start to peel up. So, you know, just bear that in mind also, you know, that it's going to peel up in certain areas at certain times, or certain, you know, ways of wearing. But would be more than happy to take care of it for you if it's something that that we ended up mistakenly using the wrong adhesive on it, or it reacted improperly. We'll be more than happy to get that taken care of for you, and I'm sure all the other reputable and respectable cobblers will do the same for you. And you know, it just doesn't mean that, you know, if your toe area here starts to peel up, that if you trip or something, it's gonna all rip off right away. I've never seen that happen on a protective sole ever, even when the particular adhesives didn't cooperate with a combination of rubbers or other materials. It'll just start to peel up in certain areas. So, you know, we'll take care of it. Now in the final, I guess it's kind of at your own discretion to what you consider as far as a flaw. You do have to consider the fact that these are thin protective soles. There are thicker versions as well available, but you got to consider the fact that if you're applying something thin like this onto another thin sole, you can't expect it to last forever. It is going to wear out. Everything wears out, and because these are so thin, they're going to wear out. Now, if we left, say, if we never put a protective sole on here, the leather on these Louboutins would actually wear out much faster than the rubber GTO that we put on here, significantly faster. But you can't be thinking that just because we put on this thin rubber that it's going to last forever, or it's going to last, you know, a year or two or a decade or whatever. You know, it could last you a couple of years. It just depends on how you wear them. So that is kind of a flaw, I guess you can say, or a bad thing for us cobblers, in other words, because all of us cobblers have experienced that. We've come across people like that over the years that we've all done repair work on footwear. Somebody comes in, we put on a protective sole, we tell them it's great, it extends life expectancy, and then, you know, sometime later they come back and they're frustrated and they're going off at us that it's our fault. We recommended this thinking, you know, it's going to extend the life expectancy, and they like, oh, I wore these out in such and such time. And they're 2 millimeter thick rubber, some cases even 1 millimeter. You walk differently. Every person walks differently. Somebody wears out the front more, somebody wears out the heel more, somebody wears out the toe quicker, or this side or this opposite side. Everyone has a particular area that they tend to wear out more and quickly, and so you can't be comparing something this thin to a thick, you know, 1/4 inch heel or something, or even a thick leather or something. You have to bear that in mind. You know, if we recommend it for us as cobblers, we're recommending it to you just because we know that it's going to be something that's going to extend the life expectancy from what you have on there currently significantly. And you know, if it wears out on you quicker than you were hoping for, just take into consideration if we didn't put that protective sole on, it would actually wear out way faster than than if there was no protective sole on there, and it just you'd make a mess out of it. You'd wear through the sole and into the upper and cause a hole where the whole shoe needs to be reconstructed or recrafted in other sorts of ways. It can turn out a mess. So just take that into consideration. It's not our fault as cobblers. We're recommending something that is actually truly better for your shoes, for your wearability of those shoes. But again, I just wanted to point that out because all of us cobblers have come across that at least once in our careers, basically. So don't take it out on us. If there is a flaw, if there's something where, again, the adhesion didn't take properly, we could only do so much. Our industry, the footwear industry in general, is evolving so quickly and so fast, that these companies, especially the low-end companies that make really cheap shoes, they're always trying to find ways to cut corners, so they come out with new rubbers, new plastics that they put on the bottom of the soles, and then we put the protective sole over top of that for a little traction or to increase the wearability of those. And it's inevitable that at one point or another, us cobblers, we always come across something where the usual adhesives or the combination of adhesives for that particular category of rubber or leather, it didn't react the same way. So bring it on over to us. We'll take care of it, and we'll get you back on your way, and hopefully pass that information on to the next cobbler and let them know and say, hey, turns out there's a new rubber on the market and this stuff is garbage. You got to start using this adhesive combined with this one or such and such. So it's just the way of the industry for us. Now, one last thing I'd like to cover before we finally go out with these or end this video is the application of protective soles. Protective soles, we always have to sand out the bottom to be able to get the protective sole to bond. So if you have a pair of Louboutins or nice finished bottom or anything like that, I'm sorry, but there's no way of just gluing it straight over top. We have to sand it out, rough it up so that the bonding works properly and it stays on for as long as possible. If we glue it on just over top as is without sanding it out or anything like that, guaranteed every time, first day you wear them, that protective sole is coming right off. It's peeling off. That's it. End of story. And even along with it, depending on the adhesives that are used by the cobbler, that finish is going to be ripped off with the protective sole some of the time too. So keep that in mind. Now, as far as applying them, some of you, if you have seen my other video where we were redoing a pair of Louboutins, we have a couple up. There's a few methods that cobblers do it. Some do it only a certain way. With Louboutins like this, for example, or other high-end leather-soled shoes, we're able to use a blade like that right there, and we carefully cut it straight across like that. Sometimes we could do like a nice rounded design either direction too, and then we get it to sit flush, and that's it. As far as the bottom area, it does take a bit more time, does come in at a little more of a premium cost, but in other cases where we get in cheaper quality shoes, or at least cheap material shoes, it doesn't necessarily have to be a cheap quality shoe, it's just that the company used a cheap material, we have to do something like this here. And that's what there's a handful of cobblers do even on Louboutins, which kills me. I can't stand that they do that. But we end up sanding it out, just a straight line like that, take the protective sole and overlap the area where we sanded out, and then after the curing process, when it sits for however long it needs to, depending on the adhesive, it cures, then we finally start trimming it out and everything, and during that process we sand it flush. And that's how we end up countering the effects of a lot of the cheaper materials out there, where we get it flusher than we possibly can with sanding it, and so there's no corner that can possibly come up and start coming unglued or anything like that. So just to point that out to some of you out there who aren't familiar with it, that's why some costs can be also very different. At some shops a protective sole can be $30-$40 starting price, or $20, whatever it may be. They have a base starting price, and then they have a premium cost version going up to $65, $75, $100, whatever it may be. Also different areas, different materials, different cobbler expertise, or different pricing, of course, so I can't tell you the exact prices of everyone else. Plus, with material going up in price every year, prices can evolve and change. So even at this time of this video, I don't really want to mention exactly how much they run, just because next year it could end up going up in price again. So can't tell you that for sure, but there is always going to be a price range. There's usually not a set price, especially with experienced or very good cobblers that are well reputable. They're gonna have options, at least, you know. They're gonna have their base, they're gonna have their high-end version. Some cobblers do just stick to strictly the low end. There are some cobblers that stick strictly to the high end. Unfortunately, with the demands out here for us in Denver, we kind of have to have that equal balance, because we do have a lady that will bring in a pair of shoes like this where it's just a cheap rubber, and at the same time also brings in a pair of Louis Vuittons. You know, so we can't say, oh, we don't do these ones, just because we don't do that form of method at all anymore. You know, we only do the high-end version. So we have to have a few options available, and sometimes we have to take the time to explain it. So hopefully this video will end up, you know, educating you on that at least. Now, this video turned out a bit longer than I hoped for, but hopefully it was very educational. Hopefully this kind of helps you understand what a protective sole really is, or a sole guard. Some cobblers call it that, but there are a lot of other nicknames. Generically, usually it's actually called a protective sole around the world in most places, just different translations. So, you know, it's definitely going to be a huge upgrade to any one of your shoes to add a little bit of traction, durability, longer life expectancy, because we're not having to resole it all that much or anything. We're just having to remove that thin layer of rubber and replace it. And it'll definitely be a huge improvement on your everyday shoes, your event shoes, your dance shoes. Maybe in certain styles of dancing it'll be perfect for that, but not all of them, of course. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Again, like I said, there are a lot of different protective soles out there, so I can't exactly cover them all side by side. These are just the ones that we tend to carry and the ones that we stand behind and like a lot. There is, again, also the SVIG that's a little more popular on the East Coast. So, you know, you have at least these options, and they have a lot of variety in color, and you know, you have some options here with the different tread patterns and finishes. So I think this should be plenty enough. There shouldn't really need to be more and more coming out all the time. I mean, unfortunately, you can't really beat the durability of these three. You can't really beat the traction of these three, at least in that 2mm thickness of a protective sole. Can't beat them, basically, you know, as well as SVIG either. Those four companies, three I have here on the SVIG, that's it. I think that should be plenty enough for your protective sole line. But more companies are coming out, why not? You know, you never know what you may find. Give some feedback to the cobbler, you know, don't go off at them. Maybe they just got a new protective sole in stock, and you know, the sales rep that brought it to them said, oh yeah, this stuff is more durable than Vibram, such and such. Turns out it's one of the lowest end protective soles out there. You know, we have to test out products too. Sometimes tests end up failing slightly too. I'm sorry, but your feedback is very important to us always. You know, just you know, bring it in, let us know, and say, hey, these grip very well, these don't grip very well, these wore out more than the Vibram, GTO, or the Caselli, but let's go ahead and switch it back to what we usually traditionally wore. And, you know, be nice to us. Some of these cobblers I've been talking to, they've been getting some very mean people lately, and a lot of times it's not even due to their own mistakes or anything like that. So be a little friendly to your local cobbler. You could take it out on me. I'll take the hits on behalf of all the other cobblers out there. Take it out on me, as if I don't have enough stresses. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any other questions, again, comment down below, send us a message. You can go to our website, cobblersplus.com. Has all of our contact information. If you need to give us a call, send us some pictures of what we would recommend for a particular type of shoe or anything, any kind of quotes or anything like that. And if you're local, again, feel free to stop on by. We're more than happy to help however we can. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we release our next video. Next Sunday's videos, I have a few ideas, but I haven't picked out quite yet which one it's going to be. You know, just see what kind of soles may work for you. So this was our Sole Talk Sunday. Thank you for joining us again, and we'll see you next Sunday then.